970 WFLA.
A number of times since I've been in this market, I have come on the air at the beginning of the show and said something to the effect of, I'm not ready yet. No, I'm not ready yet. You know, let the news drag out a little bit more. Well, you see, I thought I was ready. I was on a business meeting, a business call this afternoon for really the last 3 hours for all practical purposes. And I'd heard a story this morning that triggered a lot of thoughts in my head about the beloved Morton Downey Jr. You remember him, don't you? He used to be on the television. The beloved Morton Downey Jr. being accosted last evening in San Francisco, having his hair cut and having swastikas painted on his head, which I thought was a rather interesting story. And I thought that you would probably think it a rather interesting story, and I also thought that you would probably shoot off at the hip, what as the case may be, without really thinking about it. And so I was going to ask you something to the effect of, gee, did Morton really deserve this? Thinking that most of you would have said, he sure did. And then we were going to tie that in with a lot of other senseless acts that have taken place of late. For example, last evening there's a program, I can't remember what the hell it's called. It comes on Channel 13 right after the CBS News at 7:30. And they opened up their show last night with the story about the gang rape, well, the entire act of ridiculous violence all over Central Park last week. That culminated, I guess, with the gang rape of the young banker, or bankerette as the case may be. Well, anyway, they opened up with a question. Is New York an under-policed city out of control? And it's always fun to dump on New York City. Everybody loves to dump on the Big Apple. And the Big Apple, has a hell of a lot of people in it, so it has a hell of a lot of very bizarre stories, and it's also very congested. And I was thinking about, sure, that was an incredible act, but I don't think it has anything to do with an under-policed city. I don't think it has anything to do with being the Big Apple, because the same damn things happen here. You know it as well as I do. Just, 2 weeks ago, we buried a family that were just hacked apart, shot and hacked apart. And, a couple of weeks before that, the problems that continue to plague Bayshore. And a couple of weeks before that, and a couple of weeks before that, and a couple of weeks before that. I mean, there's hardly a day that goes by that you don't open up the newspaper and see something that can be, only described as senseless violence committed against someone else, usually someone that isn't even known to the perpetrator, if you will. And it has nothing whatsoever to do with race. It has nothing whatsoever to do with being limited to big cities. It's here in our community. It's in every community across the country, regardless of how big, regardless of how small, regardless of how mundane, regardless of how wild and woolly. It doesn't seem to make any difference. And this is what I wanted to talk to you about today. I was going to end up saying something along the lines of, gee, what do you think causes this? And gee, what do you think will put an end to it? Why is it happening, and how can we possibly put an end to it? And then, of course, I found out that my lead article was apparently a hoax. Apparently a poor man who can't take the stress and the strain of success, which to a degree I can understand. And a man who apparently can't take the stress and the strain of failure, which to a degree I can understand. Apparently did something very, very silly last night in a restroom at an airport in San Francisco. At least that's the way it's starting to look right now. And so that kind of takes away the premise of the first hour of the show, because I was going to do one of those things, hey, trust me, just answer this one, knowing full well that most of you would have probably, because Morton Downey is a loudmouth, because Morton Downey is an ass, because Morton Downey is a jerk, I was going to assume, and I think probably correctly so, that most of you would have said, yeah, sure, he deserved it. Ha, 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 ha. It's funny, to tell you the truth, the way he's always treating people and that kind of stuff. And then we're going to talk about treating other human beings and how it doesn't seem as though any of us have any respect at all for other human beings. It's not exactly a new topic of mine. I readily admit that there are a handful of things that I just keep harping on, and I'm going to continue to harp on them until we all do a little bit better at treating each other. And if that's, a big drag, hey, I'm sure Jay Marvin is interviewing someone who has written a fabulous new book. But I guess we haven't really done open phones for several days. And I guess maybe I'll just give out the telephone numbers and see what you people have on your little minds this afternoon. That's not derogatory. When I say little minds, I didn't mean it that way. 461-9352 in Pinellas, 461-WFLA. In Hillsborough, 990-9352, 990-WFLA. It is not fun to have your show stolen out from underneath of you when you've been busy all afternoon and didn't even find out until you were virtually arriving at the radio station. But sometimes open phones can be interesting. Or excuse me, we don't do open phones here. We do a phone off. Sometimes it's always, of course, the first call that sets the tenor of the program. So we shall, without any further delay, without any further ado, see just precisely what it is that is on the mind of the first caller. Largo, you're on the air at 970 WFLA.
Hi, I'll tell you what the problem is. The problem is you take a lady like she's out in Central Park in New York and she gets gang raped by a bunch of kids. And the problem is, what's going to be done with the kids? You know, they're going to get a slap on the wrist.
No, so they're being treated as adults.
Well, whether they're adults or not, you know, are they even human to do something, hit her with rocks and bottles?
Well, sir, really, the question is not what's going to happen to those specific kids in that very specific crime. But you and I, sir, are living in a very strange era, and I'm not so worried about those handful of kids as I am about all of the hundreds and thousands and probably tens of thousands of kids, as well as the hundreds of thousands and possibly millions of adults running around this country today who just don't seem to give a damn about anybody else. So if you want to focus on those 4 or 5 kids, you go right ahead.
Well, I think the reason they don't give a damn is because the system's let them down. You know, the majority of the country wants tougher laws and wants the death penalty and everything else, you know, but they don't get it because a handful of liberals or whoever's controlling it. But the fact is the lady should be able to walk out in Central Park.
Sir, the majority of states in this country today now have the death penalty.
Well, the majority of states, but it's not carried out as the citizens would wish it. Is it for you? I mean, come on,
I'm not under a death penalty sentence, sir.
Well, how much money does it cost to put a prisoner to death? What he ought to be when he's found guilty, when it's an obvious crime, he's caught raping the woman, he ought to be taken out and shot.
Well, they weren't caught raping the woman.
I'm not talking about... No. I'm not talking about...
And, sir, rape is not a capital crime.
I'm not talking about the kids, but rape ought to be a capital crime.
Well, strangely enough, it was a Republican Supreme Court that chose to make it not a capital crime.
Well, Republican or not. Dealing crack...
Well, sir, you were the one that brought up liberal.
All right, dealing crack...
So if you want to believe, sir, that some political persuasions are responsible for some things, then you have to accept that perhaps other political persuasions are responsible for others. I frankly think it has nothing whatsoever to do with politics, but that's okay. You're the one that brought it up.
Well, maybe not liberal and as in the party, but liberal and as the attitude. I don't know.
Sir, I don't know of anyone who's in favor of crime, do you?
Well,
I don't know of anyone, sir, who's in favor of letting criminals go, do you?
I think there's a lot in favor.
Do you, sir? Do you know of anyone who's in favor of letting criminals go?
Yeah, Michael Dukakis.
Oh, really? No, sir, I'm afraid not.
Well, why not? Why would you let him out on furlough? Isn't that letting him go into the public?
Sir, are you referring to the same type of furlough programs that were also the case under the Reagan administration and were also, by the way, specifically lauded by now President Bush? Are those the kind of furlough programs
you're going to tell me, do you think that the Bush administration would approve of letting Willie Horton out on furlough? Yes or no?
Yes, sir, they would have.
I don't think they would have or would.
Well, sir, actually they did.
Well, I disagree with that.
Well, you can disagree with it all you want,
all right,
sir.
Wait a minute.
But you see, sir, you were snowed just like a lot of other people. The fact of the matter is both federal and state prisons are bulging, and they have utterly no choice, sir, but to go along with furlough programs. And George Bush, as well as Ronald Reagan, and as well as, frankly, every governor in this country, sir, have lauded the furlough programs because, for the most part, they worked.
I agree. I'll take that. But
you agree? Well, now I'm going to hang up on you, sir, for lying. Get off my phone, you jerk. Don't call me up and lie to me. Unbelievable. I mean, I can't deal with... You were only on the air with me, sir, for about 3 minutes, and you changed your mind several times. This is open phone, sir, not open ear. Dade, you're on the air. Dade City, I should say. You're on the air at 970 WFLA. It's not the time to be shy, Dade City.
Bob?
Yeah.
Oh, you just call him. This is Brad. I
don't want your name. That's why we didn't ask for it to start with.
Oh, well, I just thought I want to talk to you about Morton Downey.
Yeah.
I think he's a crook. I think he did that stuff to himself. He's trying to make a lot of money off a little talk show host like you. Making a joke out of y'all, Bob.
Well, I beg your pardon, I don't contribute any money to Morton Downey.
I mean, y'all are covering it.
Covering what, sir?
Morton Downey, you're making the press out of it.
I'm making the press out of it, sir? Well, what does that mean?
What does that mean?
Yes,
it means
well,
you're just,
I've never noticed an echo
You're
here
building
before.
him up. He's a smart guy.
Oh, really, sir?
Hey, did you see the picture of him in the Enquirer?
No, I didn't.
No.
We'll wait for him to rush back to his radio. Da-da-da-da-da-da. Just for the hell of it, I dumped your last line, you know. Tampa, you're on the air at 970 WFLA.
Yes, Mr. Lassiter?
Yes.
This is not a political situation with these gangs. This is something that there has to be parental supervision. And
has to be parental supervision, man. Well, don't you think it's a little bit late? You know, when you go running through the park.
Well, when a youngster is 13 or 14 years old, and he's out at 9 or 10 o'clock on a school night or whatever it is, you'd certainly think that...
Man, you don't live in the same world these people live in. There are no such things as school nights in Harlem. There are no such things as parental supervision in this type of an atmosphere.
Well, then how are we going to eliminate such violence if that situation doesn't
I think that's a question you ought to really contemplate and ponder, don't you?
Well, I'll tell you, it's a very scary situation.
But I think you ought to contemplate it and ponder it in a little bit more, in a more realistic sense than to say, well, they shouldn't be out on a school night.
Well, I'll tell you, number one, I don't know too much about Harlem, all right? And so I have no concept of just what goes on there, and I'm sure that there must be some families that say to their children, you know, you have to be at home, you can't be out, or whatever. I have to know where you're going, or whatever the situation is.
Well, let's see, you're calling from what, Tampa, was that, I believe?
Yeah.
Well, go through College Hill and multiply it by 1,000, then you'll have a little bit of a concept.
Well, you see, I've never been through College Hill, so I can tell you that I really am not aware of that situation. It's just from what I read. And I'm sure that if I went through College Hill, I'd be horrified.
I'm sure you would, too.
You know, and
Maybe if more of us went through College Hill, there wouldn't be a College Hill.
You know something? You just said something that makes an awful lot of sense. Absolutely. But what can we do to help these gangs? What can we do?
I don't know. I do know that when I see a group of black youth walking down the street, I'm afraid. I don't mind telling you that. I don't mind doing
I am,
that.
too.
They can all have Boy Scout uniforms on and be carrying Bibles, and I'm still going to be afraid.
Uh-huh.
And I would dare say that when they see a whole lot of Lassiters walking down the street, they're afraid, too. Maybe not quite the same type of fear. Maybe not the fear of the imminent violent crime, but the type of fear of the long-term suppression, the long-term bigotry.
Yeah.
I'm sure that should make them very fearful. And maybe when they were throwing rocks at people on bicycles, probably expensive bicycles, in Central Park, and maybe when they were beating the hell out of and raping this white woman banker from an upper-crust family, maybe they didn't realize that these were real human beings that they were perpetrating these horrible, horrible crimes on. Not to forgive them in any shape, manner, or form, but just simply to point out that since they aren't real to us, maybe we're not real to them. And we're not talking race here, we're talking class.
Right. No remorse. Nothing. Sort of it's a real tragedy. This type of thing going on and on and on.
Oh, I know how it can continue to go on. I just don't know how to stop it because there simply aren't any answers that I'm aware of.
That's a very sad situation. Well, that's all I had to say, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. 990-9352 in Hillsborough, 461-9352 in Pinellas. It's a phone off. Yeah, that's what it is.
News Radio 970 WFLA's Gardner and Company in the early morning.
Stabbings and holdups and assaults.
I don't doubt it.
Fine neighborhood, sir.
I agree with it. I live in a nice neighborhood in Sarasota, and we have our share of problems also. I moved from New York to get away from things that I thought were indigenous to New York. They're not. They're nationwide, maybe not in the Midwest or some small towns. But I think we can help ourselves by being aware of our environment. Don't walk down dark streets. Try and walk in twos in dangerous areas. I bought a big dog. I have a pistol. I don't advocate people having a pistol.
Well, wait a second. You want to live in a world where you are...
I didn't say I want to.
You can't walk around freely. You should have a large dog, a gun, maybe bars on your windows. That's no answer. That's not the way to live. That's not what the human beings are supposed to do, is it?
No, it isn't. I agree with you, and you're painting a picture that doesn't sound to me the way I visualize myself, but I guess it's probably right. No.
Well, you see, I don't have a big dog and I don't have a gun. I do have a security system. I'll tell you, if I wouldn't step 5 feet away from that house without activating it.
All right, I agree. I have a security system
no
also.
Way to live.
I'm sorry?
And it's no way to live.
I agree with you. It's no way to live, but I think it's a fact of life. People who crossed the plains had to deal with Indians and wild animals. That was no way to live. They did it. They lived.
Well, that's because they were the perpetrators. They were the ones, busting in on somebody else's neighborhood who wasn't too thrilled about it.
That may be true, but I don't think it's pertinent. It's a fact that they still had to deal with it.
It was to the so-called savages whose lands were being stolen from them. It was very pertinent to them.
Well, you're talking about what's right and what's wrong. I'm trying to talk about what's real. This is a fact of life. This is the way we live today. It's not great. It's not wonderful. We have other compensations for the world that we live in. I think that's just a fact of life that we're just going to have to accept.
Do you think it is possible to find a solution?
I'd love to think...
Not an overnight one. We both know that that's impossible, but to find a solution that, let's say maybe 5 or 10 years from today might start to reverse.
I would love to think it were possible, but I sure can't think of one. And I'm not for upping the death penalty. I'm not for throwing I'm not even for these 5 animals in New York.
Then let me ask you this. To find a solution, you basically usually have to sit down and try to figure out how the problem started.
Yes.
And, work backwards from there.
Yes.
Why do you think the streets are the way they are today?
To answer that, I'd have to sound like an ultra-conservative, which I don't think I am. I think it has to do with poverty and with haves and have-nots, and unfortunately the haves and the have-nots are growing further and further apart. But I don't know what the answer to that is. I know supplying people with something for nothing is not the way you bring them up in society. It doesn't work. They've tried it, and it doesn't work. I don't know what the answer is. I really don't know. I'd love to say I have the answer, but I don't. I know there's a problem. I know how I deal with it, but I sure wish I could think of an answer.
Well, you see, I don't know what caused it either. I can think of a few things that are at least contributors, but I'm not sure that they are in and of themselves the entire problem. I can think of a lot of things, some of them rather esoteric, that are contributors to what the problem is. I'm not quite sure how to reverse them. I'm not quite sure that they can be reversed. I, like a lot of other people, and this makes me uncomfortable in being somewhat simple-minded in looking at a problem, I feel that television, radio, films are very, very, very much responsible for making us view other human beings as not real. And so, therefore, people who aren't real, you can beat up on or steal from or cheat or do whatever it is.
We've bred a whole generation of sociopaths, unfortunately.
And what do? I don't know, but boy, I don't like it.
I don't like it either, but I do enjoy your show.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. 2
lines available. Both of them are in Hillsborough. I take it back. I'm fitting 3 lines. Another drop-off there. 990-9352, 990 WFLA. Zephyr Hill. Zephyr, how are you this afternoon?
Well, good afternoon there.
Zephyr,
fine, thank you.
I have to admit something to you.
What's that, sir?
Today, for the first time, I was up in the Lutz area.
Uh-huh.
And I've never been in that particular part of the Tampa Bay area, and I saw a sign in Lutz. Actually, it was outside of Lutz. I'd already passed through Lutz that said Zephyr Hills, still another 20 miles.
It's a long way. I live in Lutz and work over here in Zephyr Hills, so I commute every day.
Can you actually see it? I mean, is it really true that on a clear day you can see the skyline of Cleveland from Zephyr Hills?
Yeah, if you get up on top of the tallest hill out there on 301 between here and Dade City, yeah, you can.
Okay.
But anyway, what I call about, though, is when we were talking about the crime situation. Of course, we all know, for the most part, that I think the biggest thing that has to do with our street crime, of course, is the old crack thing, which, everybody knows that's the truth, but unfortunately have been unable to do anything about it.
Well, I don't know. Most of the crime that was committed in this area in the last, well, when I say most of the crime, most of the more sensationalized crime that was committed in this area in the last month didn't really have a damn thing to do with crack.
And granted, you're absolutely right, because, although you yourself live in a very, very fine area, unfortunately there are some surrounding fringes that are not quite so fine.
Well, of course. It's
that's the same way. I grew up in the south side of town. I went to school, junior high school there on Swan Avenue, right by where you live. And at that time, when I was growing up down there, we never used to lock our house. We could go away on Sunday afternoon and go visit the grand folks and whatnot, and the house was never locked. at any given time, maybe at night, and once in a while we might lock the door. Of course, nowadays, as you say, you don't dare do it.
I've been listening to that story now for almost 40 years.
It's the God's truth.
Well, no. I think you missed my point.
Oh.
Almost as long as I've been alive, the middle-aged and the elderly folks have been saying, well, I never used to lock my doors, but now I do.
That's true.
But so I'm not so sure that that's really viable.
Oh, I see.
Well, it's just kind of one of those old tales that keeps getting told over and over again.
Well, that could be like having to walk to school 10 miles in the snow, right? But the guy grew up in Ybor City.
I can tell you, unequivocally, that we never used to lock my doors when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll bet if I lived in that same neighborhood today, I still wouldn't lock my doors.
Yeah, well, I've changed from that because I live in a nice subdivision in Lutz. I'm fortunate. I've done pretty well for myself. I have a nice home. But it came down to my wife wanted one of two things. She either wanted a gun or a security system, and there was no way I was going to buy her a gun at that point, because so we now have a security system. It's the same way. If I walk out of that house, if I'm gone more than 5 minutes, she's got the security system set, and she's in there, with bated breath waiting, But if people would just, like you say, they've lost touch with one another.
Well, great. How do we reverse that?
Well, that I don't know. You asked me yesterday for an answer, and I just didn't have it. I have to start researching these things better, I guess.
I mean, are you going to go out and walk up and down your street and start knocking on your neighbor's doors and, putting out your hand and say, hi, I'm...
Well, that's true. That is true. I've lived in this neighborhood. I built this house about a year and a half ago, and other than my immediate next-door neighbor, I really don't know anybody else because I keep to myself. I'm a quiet, I don't... my neighbor, he and I watch each other's houses, and we pretty much know what's going on. If one is going out of town or going to be gone for the weekend, we try and watch each other's place. But other than that, I really don't know any other folks in the subdivision, and it's a fairly small subdivision.
And that's just your neighborhood. Are then,
that's right.
Then are you going to come down to the seamier sections of town?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not either.
But I know a lot of the folks.
God knows if those folks start walking up and down my street knocking on my door, I'm going to call the police.
Absolutely, and if the people that the individuals that live in these lesser, or like you say, the seedier areas that have the problem with the rampant drug usage and the crack and so forth, if these folks, the only way they're going to be able to do it, they're going to have to take the neighborhood back themselves. That's the only way they can do it. And unfortunately, the doggone people are prisoners in their own homes, especially at night. A lot of those places, you can go down there in the daytime and they're not too bad, but once the sun goes down, geez, you better not, you don't dare go around there. And these poor people are caught, they're prisoners in their own home. The police can't do anything about it. The only way they can do it is they just have to gang up on them and just start, start watching and reporting and watching and raising Cain and whatever they can do to try and move these people out. Because
go ahead. At the risk of sounding like a bleeding heart liberal, does it make any sense to you, and also at the risk of sounding, and I swear to you I'm not, that I'm trying to make it lighter for these punks, these miserable punks that committed these awful crimes up in Central Park, does it make any sense to you that maybe what part of the problem is that the white folk, pedaling around the park or jogging through the park in their $150 jogging shoes, is it possible that the white folk are just as unreal to those black hoodlums as those black hoodlums are unreal to us?
Yeah, I think that's very, very possible. In fact, it's more likely it's fact.
That's what we have to change, and I'll be damned if I can figure out how to do it.
I can't figure out how to do that either. I know that a lot of the criminal elements, especially these your new age drug peddlers and drug dealers, if they work near as hard at legitimate operations as they do illegitimate, you better look at the sky be the limit. As far as what they could achieve.
Yeah, if we'd let them work.
If you could, if you could come up with something that would a magic bullet or a pill that you could take that would instill the work ethic that makes them drive as hard as crack does when they're out foraging for money and for goods to turn.
I think you probably need two magic pills. Not only one that did that, but one that also took away the accent, straightened out the hair. And made them look just like you and me.
Well, it's just to blend it in, just all into, quote, mainstream. Is that mainstream them? Is that what you're saying?
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure that if one of those dudes showed up down in the lobby and said, hey, let me go out and sell a radio advertising time for you, or let me do a talk show, or whatever it might be, lacing with a couple of MFs here and, some chains there. And,
yeah, right.
We tossed him out in the middle of the street.
Oh, no, there's no doubt about that. Well, I guess that's true. But within their own... and within one's own area, or how am I trying to say this without sounding racist?
I know what you mean. It's not easy, is it?
Even if folks concentrated within their own communities and work as hard trying to do legitimate things as they do trying to do illegitimate things.
Because one of the things that's becoming painfully apparent in all of this violence all over the country, it has nothing whatsoever to do with race. It's black on black, it's black on white, it's white on black, white on white. It has nothing to do with race at all.
That's true. That's
just
true.
Violence.
Because, violence is violence, and it's true. It has no barriers for race, color, or creed. I mean, they go at each other, or those that aren't like, and whether the perpetrators are black, white, or green, or pink, it's all the same. It's violence, and it's just total lack of respect for one another, for human beings in general.
Thank you, Zephyr Hills.
I appreciate the time. We'll talk to you again.
Be good.
See ya.
Off it is now to Tampa. Hi, Tampa. You're on the air at 970 WFLA.
Hey, Bob.
Yeah.
Your first caller was talking about, furloughs and early release. And I was thinking earlier yesterday that isn't this early release program, isn't it saying that, the state, that the convicts' rights are more important than the rest of society's?
No, it says nothing whatsoever. And besides, furloughs and early release are two totally different things.
Well, okay, what I'm really talking about is early release then, because it's wrong. I don't know what it is about it, but it's saying that this set of laws that are set up to regulate how many prisoners are in a prison are more important than the criminal laws which we have on the books. And that's where I think the criminal laws are failing. It's because we're not treating them as laws. They're secondary to the laws regulating the prison.
I beg your pardon. The criminal justice system, the warden, everybody would be only too thrilled, the judges too, by the way, would only be too thrilled to keep these people in prison if, you and I would pay for the prisons.
Well, I can't argue with you there, but,
And, simply because you have committed a crime does not mean that you are not a human being. And I would think that a human being, especially one who was not a criminal, especially one who was not behaving like an animal, would want humane treatment for criminals. And it would seem to me that someone who purported to be a human being who was in favor of keeping other human beings in less than humane circumstances and conditions would be someone that I'd have a little bit of suspicion about. You know what I mean?
Well, I don't think that's entirely fair. But the problem is, the criminal justice system isn't working the way it is, and I'm looking at changing it the way it is. And you're kind of
the criminal justice system works just the way you want it to work.
Not the way I want it to work.
Sure it does.
No. I'm young. I'm a new voter. I'm coming into old policies that are already here. And I mean, I can't argue with, everyone likes to hear no new taxes, but I do know we need to spend more money because the true reason for having criminal laws isn't to incarcerate people. It's to make sure they don't do the same thing again, whether it's creating job opportunities outside or just making a better life for people. But that's not what we're doing. The way we're doing it now is incarcerating people, so I'm trying to perfect that because it's easier to perfect something than to change it.
You get no argument from me, sir. I've always been in favor of very, very strict, strong sentences for criminals, especially those who commit acts of violence. I've always been in favor of it.
Well, I guess what I'm trying to say is...
hell, if it was up to me, sir, somebody who committed 2 acts of violence would go away for the rest of their life.
And that's something, I don't know when it changed. We used to have that habitual offender law, but it got tossed out. I don't know when. It's before my time.
No, sir, it's still there. It's still there.
We don't have one in this state, do we?
I'm pretty sure we do. I don't know that I'd want to bet my entire paycheck on it, but I'm pretty sure that we do.
No, I don't think you'd want to bet your entire paycheck on it because...
Virtually every state does.
A habitual criminal law?
Yeah, but it's the same crime over and over, not just a crime.
Oh, because it used to be like 4 felonies and you're locked up for life, and it's no longer like that. I guess that they figure once they get caught twice, if they change crimes, they're making an attempt to conform to society. I don't know.
Either do I. Thank you very much. 3:40 the time. 990-9352 in Hillsborough, 4619352 in Pinellas. It is really great to see Michael all the way at the other end of the room when I hang up quickly on a caller like that and start to go into the usual type of lines that I would use before taking a break. And Michael's on the other side of the room, just watching him fly, literally float across the room with his index finger stretched out so that he can hit the proper button when I go like, there's a little hand gesture that I make, and it's something like this.
Forever, I've been after Harry to pop...
Every one of your doors and told you about the Grand Prix car wash, because if you own an automobile, and probably most of you do, then you should be very concerned about the care of that automobile. Not just things like changing the oil and, checking the tire pressure and getting tune-ups, but taking care of the exterior of that automobile and the interior of it as well. Because you see, that car is going to be worth a lot more if you keep it in good shape, as well as it's going to give you a lot more pleasure while you're driving it if you keep it in good shape, if you keep it clean, if you keep the outside of it washed and waxed.
Clearwater, hi, Clear. You're on the air at 970 WFLA.
Yeah, I was talking to that fella, and I said I have a solution. You got to get rid of some people.
Oh, what do you mean, sir?
You got to get rid of big fat pigs like you, and life will be a lot better.
God, do you remember 20 years ago, back in, 1969, that would be, 1968, whatever, 21 years ago, the great rallying cry throughout the entire nation was law and order. I wonder how many of you would be only too happy to go back to the days of 1968 in terms of walking on the streets in your neighborhood, in terms of almost anything that has to do with your own personal safety and the personal safety of your family. And here it is 21 years later, and by the way, strangely enough, the very political party that cried out law and order now seem to have utterly nothing to say about law and order. They talk about communist revolutions in Nicaragua and how that's, how terrible that's going to be for me, or things of that nature, and mention nothing about law and order. And also, by the way, that was pretty much the party that has been in office for almost all of that period of time in terms of being in the White House, leading the nation. I wonder if when that jolly fellow, remember that jolly fellow who about 10 years ago used to run around saying, "Are you better off now than you were 4 years ago?" I wonder why the jolly fellow doesn't go around saying, "Do you feel more safe today than you did 21 years ago?" Fort Myers, you're on the air at 970 WFLA.
Good afternoon, Robert.
Afternoon, Fort.
At the risk of sounding like a fascist, it sort of scares me to even be thinking this way, but I think I would be willing to give up a few of my constitutional rights and guarantees.
Like which one?
The ones that the NRA and those guys always pull out about gun control and all that thing, to turn some of this around and maybe get our permissive society thinking a little differently, a little more conservatively.
I don't understand. First of all, you've got a horrible, horrible line. Can I put you on hold and perhaps arrange with Michael to call you back or something? Because the line is so bad I can't leave it on the air.
Okay.
Okay, let me put him on hold. Mike, see what we can do about getting that line cleared up. And in the meanwhile, downtown, Tampa, downtown, you're on the air at 970 WFLA.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Is this you, the original Downtown Dave?
This is he.
Oh, my God. I don't know if you were listening the other day, but we almost had heart failure here. We got you mixed up with someone else who claimed to be Dave in downtown.
Oh, is that right?
Oh, it was amazing.
Well, there's not a registered trademark on that, so maybe somebody else is using my name.
Well, no, he wasn't really trying to be the Downtown Dave impersonator. It just so happens his name was Dave, and it just so happens he was calling from downtown.
And you must have thought of me, right?
Well, we thought of you because he was, rather ultra-liberal, and it virtually gave us heart failure.
Well, I'll tell you, I don't know if you happened to watch CNN last night. I caught in on your show about a half an hour ago, and a very interesting subject. I don't know if you caught it last night. The Crossfire show.
I caught about half of it.
Okay. First of all, what needs to be done to improve the situation is, first of all, you don't want to increase the guns to protect yourself because that would even create more chaos, I think.
Probably.
Well, you get more guns out there, it's going to create more of a problem. That's not the answer. Secondly, you don't want to increase the police force because that would be leaning toward a little bit more of a police state. People would get the wrong idea. And Bob, how can you blame the Republican Party for this safety thing? How can you do that?
I wasn't blaming the Republican Party.
I knew you were going to bring politics into this.
I wasn't blaming the Republican Party. I was just lamenting back to the good old days of 1968 when almost all of us would have said the streets were far, far safer. And Richard Nixon pretty much got himself elected in 1968 on a law and order platform. Mm-hmm. And, both Democrat and Republican today never talk about it. Mm-hmm. But yet I know, everybody that's listening to this program knows that we feel a hell of a lot less safe on our own streets today than we did 21 years ago, yet nobody's bothering to mention it.
Well, I was only a kid at that point, so I really wasn't paying too much attention.
Well, trust me, the streets were safer 21 years ago. How much safer, I don't know,
mm-hmm.
but they were safer.
What I think you're ultimately going to need to do, Bob, very simply put, is to do something shocking to the type of people who are causing these types of problems.
Like?
Can you put me on hold?
Sure I can.
Okay.
Okay, we'll put Downtown Dave on hold. Take a breather and return. 2 more hours yet to go. Please, whatever you do not venture very far. It is not my fault. I mean, I had a dynamite show set up for you guys today. If it hadn't been for that jerk cutting off his own hair and painting a swastika on his own head, I mean, hey, it's not my fault. Did everything I could possibly do. Miserable idiot. In his living room, it should be a very, very big day for him. Downtown Dave standing by with a solution to the problems of the world. Dave, you're still there?
Yeah.
Okay, what was it?
You're going to have to do something shocking. And the shocking thing is first of all, you're going to have to start changing. The state of New York does not prosecute or does not. I think they give different jail terms to young adults.
Okay, my understanding, when you're a juvenile tried as an adult in the state of New York, the minimum sentence is the same, but the maximum is 1/3 less than the maximum for an adult being tried as an adult.
Exactly. And they're going to have to change. They're going to have to change that. You're going to have to shock the crime world. You can't add to the fire by handing out guns because it'll make it more chaotic. You don't want a police state. You're going to have to fight back by making an example of one of the crime doers.
Are you serious? You think these people, first of all, bother to read the newspaper, and secondly, what? Dave, do you remember being 15 years old?
Yeah.
1 year was an eternity, wasn't it, Dave?
Yeah.
I mean, you couldn't really tell the difference between a year from now or 15 years from now. It didn't make any difference. It was forever. It was an impossible thing to understand, to comprehend. Right?
I suppose so.
Same thing for them, Dave, as it was for you.
Well, let me put it to you this way, okay? One person is near death, okay, between life and death.
Yep.
Okay? And one of these people, or I don't know who's admitted to the crime, this is hearsay now, they said that they saw, they were on video and they admitted doing the crime. There's going to have to be some punishment dealt out here.
How many more of them are out there? And they're all over the country. They're here in Tampa. They're in Camden, New Jersey. They're in Toledo, Ohio. They're everywhere.
And this is why you're going to have to shock the world.'re going to have to put one of them to death.
Put one of them to death?
Absolutely.
How's A, they going to shock the world, and B, again, these kids aren't exactly reading the paper in the morning.
It doesn't make any difference whether they read the paper or not. Okay. The fact of the matter is that there's one person near death.
Well,
okay?
I appreciate that, but since putting people to death doesn't seem to shock adults
just
out
one
of committing
person.
Crimes.
Just one individual.
Well, Dave, what I'm saying is, since putting adults to death in the chair or the chamber or whatever it might be doesn't shock adults out of committing such crimes, why do you think it's going to shock a 14-year-old punk out of it?
Well, you don't think it would curb their attitude a little bit?
No, I don't.
I definitely do.
And these people sat there supposedly and made up rap songs, man, about what they had just done in jail. They are not living in the same world that you and I live in, Dave.
I'm glad they don't. Are they beating somebody with a lead pipe and then
You're glad they don't. No, I don't think you really mean that. I don't think you quite understood what I'm saying when I say they don't live in the same world. Dave, we've got to bring them into the same world, because that's the only way that we're going to be able to shock or scare or reason or do whatever it is that we have to do with these people to treat other human beings like human beings.
What do you mean by bringing them into the real world?
No, into our world, Dave. These people they don't have our standards. They don't have our sense of morality, our sense of what is right, our sense of what is wrong. And they're going to continue to do this kind of crap until they do have the same sense of what's right and wrong that you and I have.
And you think that if a kid does not want to abide by our rules, if he doesn't want to, if you give him everything that he needs, you still think that's going to change his attitude?
Dave, I didn't say anything about giving him anything. I said utterly nothing about giving them anything. I'm trying to figure out, and I think that we all better try to figure out, how to get to these people. How to give these people whatever it is that keeps you and I from doing these kinds of despicable acts.
Well, usually people who do like that are,
I said nothing about government programs, Dave.
Right.
I said nothing about giveaways or increased checks or nothing like that.
I know.
Because I don't think that's what did it, and I don't think that's what's going to correct it. I think we're talking about a long-term 20, 30, 40, 50, unfortunately, year
Well, what should a normal 15, 16-year-old kid be doing? They should be playing basketball. They should be they should be studying. They should be playing football. They should be playing baseball.
I agree.
Okay? Those things are available to them every single day of the week.
I agree.
Okay? So obviously, if they're not doing
they don't mean anything to them. See, it meant something to you. It meant something to me. We studied because we thought that, and we're basically right, we studied because we thought that if we did so, we'd have an easier time in life. We'd get better jobs, make more money, have to, work less hard in terms of at least manual labor. We played basketball because we were fantasizing. At least that's what I was doing when I was out there playing basketball and baseball. I was pretending to be my favorite star or whatever it might have been. That's why we did those kind of things. Why aren't these kids doing them, Dave? That's what we got to figure out.
I think what it comes down to is family.
That's one possible solution, and surely definitely one of the main causes is the breakdown of the family. I think there are a lot of others. I have already mentioned this show, a lot of other shows, the media, if you will, television, radio, TV, movies.
God almighty,
that's part of the problem, too.
Beating somebody with a lead pipe, raping her, and leaving her for dead?
I can't begin to conceive of it. I cannot begin to conceive of it.
And then they laugh about it?
Because you and I, you see, we don't live in their world. We've got to figure out how in the hell other human beings can do those kinds of things and not understand what it is that they're doing. And that's what we've got to do, is we've got to figure out how they can do it before we can figure out how in the hell to stop them from doing it.
I can't imagine a world what they live in. I can't imagine.
Putting one in an electric chair, frankly, Dave, sounds kind of appealing to me, but I don't know that it's going to change a damn thing, and I'm far more interested in changing things than I'm interested in, getting my own jollies off.
Let me put it to you this way, Bob. I don't think it would hurt anything either.
Well, I'm still far more concerned, Dave, with keeping it from happening to somebody else than I am with getting my revenge for one particular act. I'm a human being. I'm into revenge.
Well, I don't know.
I like to see people suffer for their misdeeds. I'm just like everybody else, but I would also prefer that it never happened again.
Well, I think we have an alternative. The alternative is either crack down hard on the punishment, or we have to start carrying guns around. And I don't want to carry a gun around.
Dave, these people live, for sure, in a different world than you and I, in that they face violence on the streets, they face the threat of death, the threat of dismemberment, the threat of rape, all on their own person every single day. These people live in a very, very violent world who live in the housing projects of New York City.
I still can't believe that
the threat of hurting them ain't going to exactly cut it, because that's just an everyday affair with these people.
Yeah. Tough decision, I'll tell you. I don't know what to do.
I don't know, but I don't know either, Dave, but we've all got to sit down at some point and put our heads together and try to find a solution, because I don't want to live in this kind of a world.
I don't either.
I like to go to New York City. I like to walk along Bayshore at night. I like to walk up and down the beach, a lonely, deserted stretch of beach at night. I enjoy doing all of these things, and I want to live in a safe world.
These kids don't have to be out in the street, though. That's what I'm saying.
When I was down getting a drink of water during the newscast, I was thinking about security systems. We were talking about those in the last hour.
Yeah.
We were talking about 21 years ago with the great cry for law and order in this country. 21 years ago, the only people that had security systems, as a general rule of thumb, were people who had valuable art collections. Not just normal citizens trying to protect, furniture that's not paid off yet from JCPenney's. Mm-hmm. That's how the world's changed in the last 21 years, and I don't like it.
Not getting any better, is it?
Thank you, David.
Have a good one.
You too. 990-9352 in Hillsborough, the only two lines available, 990-WFLA. Of course, 21 years ago, there wasn't the possibility of, McHenry coming over and knocking on your door either. It's enough to make anybody goodness. Oh, Gary,
Hi, Bob.
baby.
Yeah, I'm
hey.
here. I'm here in case you were thinking about saying something nasty about me. I didn't want you to, embarrass yourself and say it while I was listening.
Oh, hey, Gary, if things are going to be messed up going home.
Hey, they are too, Bob.
Of course, then there's the one at 4:30, and then there's the one at 4:40, and 4:50, and at 5 o'clock, and at 5:10, and 5:20, 5:30, 5:40. And it's 7:22, and
Traffic right now messed up in Pinellas County.
17.
At a couple of locations, Park Boulevard, heavily backed up westbound, moving over toward Lake Seminole. That because of an earlier problem.
Groups of 10s and 20s of my high school buddies, and
Right.
talking
So did
about
I,
the
but it
girls.
was different. We were a different society.
Well, why was it different? And on top of that, a few weeks ago, middle-class kids right here in good old Tampa Bay, shooting each other over girls and and middle-class kids taking out bums a year ago with their little skin heads.
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand.
So where's it headed, Bob?
Well, where's it coming from?
I don't know. This.
I mean, it's not poverty per se. It's not race per se.
No, it's not.
You know, are some of them racist? I suppose. Are some of them very poor? I suppose. Some of them are very wealthy. Some of them are in between. It just... There has got to be some kind of an answer. It must be coming from someplace.
But we can't compare what we have here with what they have in the large cities.
But
it's totally
I beg your
different.
pardon. I beg your pardon. We can compare it because we do have here what they have in the large cities.
No, like you, I heard you say earlier today that you could look at College Hill and multiply it by 1,000 and you might get Harlem.
Well, yeah, but you don't have to have Harlem to have senseless violence.
Okay, I agree. But,
well, that's what I was talking about.
But to the extent, I mean, you're talking just a walk to buy a gallon of milk in Harlem. It's like nothing, you know what I'm saying?
Well, it's becoming quite an adventure to walk a block and buy a bottle of milk around here.
Okay.
In many neighborhoods, and you know I'm not really exaggerating. Okay. And it's like that all over the country anymore.
It's an absolute shame because it's going to get worse. It's not going to get better. And again, I think it comes mostly from the drug problem with these youngsters trying to emulate the drug dealers. Knowing that there's an easy way to make money, what they feel is an easy way to make a lot of money. Looking at sports stars today with spectacular sports contracts, they're looking at the easy way out differently from when you stood on that corner with your friends in groups of 10, thinking on how to get ahead and how to make more money in life and earn more money in life. It was different. You didn't look at Mickey Mantle back then and say,
we weren't really trying to figure out how to make more money in life. We were trying to figure out how to get somebody to take her bra off.
Okay, right,
I mean,
exactly.
Come on, let's be honest.
Exactly. I didn't want to say that, but sticking to the topic, you know, you didn't stand there and say, I'm going to be like Mickey Mantle because Mickey Mantle's got a contract, like Dwight Gooden's got now, because Mantle didn't have that, and money wasn't the issue. You wanted to be like Mickey Mantle. I'm just saying you wanted to be like Mickey Mantle because he was a great ball player.
Well, I also want to be like Don Richards, too, but you understand what I'm saying.
Yes, sir, I understand.
Yeah, he gets so testy. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Be a good caller. Don Richards standing by the WFLA. When you give up smoking, when you finally give up smoking, you're going to notice a little more stamina. You're going to notice more of a spring in your step. I'm not kidding. You're going to notice that you're not going to be coughing and wheezing. You'll be astonished at how soon that will clear up. And you're going to notice how bad you smell. I don't know if that's true anymore. That I brought it.
You're on the air at 970 WFLA.
Yeah, Bob. I think you've got two different, I don't want to say classes, but let's say category of kids. So let's say one category is the, I don't want to use the term rich kid, but the kid that's in let's say a more decent neighborhood. I think here the parents have a lot to do with it.
Tasty cake.
It seems like the parents are trying to push the kids away. I don't have time for that. They're just not taking the time to make a kid do what he's supposed to do or learn what he's supposed to learn. And I think some of this responsibility has to fall back on the parents. Be it fine the parents, somehow make the parents responsible for the kids again.
Well, again, if you want to talk about the parents, quote unquote, who live in housing projects in New York City or in Newark or in Chicago or whatever, I don't really think the risk of fine is going to be a motivational factor. Do you?
No, I agree. That's what I say. There's two different groups: the one kid that lives in the well-to-do neighborhood and the kid that comes from the slums. And I think each case is going to have to be taken different. I don't think there can be one.
But I don't want to wait until there is a case. I'd like to try to figure out beforehand, before the next case, which obviously is utterly impossible. I'm speaking here in very broad terms, but I'd like to try to figure out before the next case happens why the last one happened, so that we can prevent the next one.
Well, to be realistic, I don't think it will. I think you can beat your brains all you want to, and it's still going to happen.
What about something wild and crazy, like maybe a mass I'm serious here. A mass relocation program to, maybe break up those ghettos and spread them around the country. Would that possibly?
You'll still have a ghetto, right?
Well, how would you have a ghetto? If you spread them around, only put 15 here, 23 over there.
You put
7
15
here.
Okay, but they're still going to migrate towards the ghetto. I mean, I'm sure the ghetto in New York City didn't start out as a ghetto in New York City with 1,000 people or 10,000 people, right?
Well, there have almost always been ghettos in New York City.
Okay, but what I'm getting at is you can move them around. You're still going to have ghettos. They may not be as big, but people are still going to end up in the ghettos, and they're still going to grow for one reason or another.
Well, maybe you'd break it up for
40 or 50
No,
years.
it's not.
Would you go for it?
No, because what you're going to do is just put the problem in somebody else's backyard.
Do?
Well, okay, then maybe the exact reverse.
To the aggressors on the western
Migration. You'd have to have a permit to move someplace. You'd have to have a reason to move someplace. Would you go for that?
I just don't think that's the answer. I don't think...
World at War documentary.
I don't think there is an answer without...
There's got to be an answer.
I don't think so.
Don't you believe in cause and effect? Yin and
God,
yang?
you're yin.
For every action, there's a reaction?
Yeah, but you're
if that's all true, then there's an answer.
You're pulling my yang.
I think you're really trying to get moralistic with this, and I don't think you can.
Moralistic?
Yeah.
I just talked about issuing permits.
No, but I'm talking about trying to. I don't want to use the word save. Maybe I don't want to use the word save these people or these kids.
The hell with saving the kids, man. I'm talking about saving my own ass. I want to go out at night.
You can't just hand out money. That isn't any good.
Not money.
Kids don't really
we'll
seem to
buy
want
booze
to
with the money.
take responsibility for what they're doing today. Parents don't seem to want to make the kids take responsibility. Parents don't seem to want to take the responsibility for their own kids.
Well, hell with it all.
It's a sad situation.
Well, speaking of situations, I have a situation here that's going to be very sad if I don't get off the phone here with you.
Have a good day.
Take care. Don Richards standing by at the WFLA News Desk. Donald?
Steve.
New Port Richie. New, you're on the air at 970 WFLA.
Good afternoon, Mr. Lassiter.
Good afternoon.
Hey, that last advertisement made a lot of sense. More people should use them instead of running around like a chicken with her head chopped off looking for mortgage rates. Save them a lot of time.
You needn't be patronizing to my clients.
But it is a fact. Bob, one question. First of all, I heard you mention earlier you did watch Crossfire last night.
Yeah, about half of it right with Al Sharpton.
Oh, yeah, well, they didn't seem to accomplish anything. No one knew the answer anyways. Another question.
When you get Al Sharpton on the show, you're not looking for an answer.
I wanted to ask you a question. Do you watch Crossfire quite a bit, Bob?
No, I don't really. To tell you the truth, Braden just drives me insane.
Well, that was my question right there. I was going to say, it just seems to me that Tom Braden is slipping badly. And
yeah, well, I think it started to slip badly about 20 years ago.
Is it Alzheimer's, or is it just...
I think it's just not being that swift.
My gosh, I just can't believe him. I mean, it's like he's just...
well, I mean, come on, you've got the absolute archetypical, stereotypical conservative, and, so why not have the archetypical, stereotypical liberal? Two guys that embarrass both of their supposed sides.
Oh, man. Hey, by the way, I was listening to your program the other day, and you were talking about John.
One of the callers called in and mentioned John Eastman, and due to the fact
Wait, now, how are you calling me to talk about John
Well, I
Eastman?
just wanted to mention this. Due to the fact that we can't...
I don't care. Bye. Good grief. Give me a break. Tampa, you're on the air at 970 WFLA.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. My name is Al. And I don't have any answers, I don't think, as anyone probably doesn't, for the kids who had this... did the most dastardly thing to that young lady. However,
well, I would agree with you that I don't have the answers either. But may I ask one question? Do you think that maybe answers do exist? We just haven't found them yet.
Oh, I think they exist.
Okay.
Oh, I clearly do. I think that the depersonalization of the victim, as we've seen in this example, where these kids didn't even ask what happened to the girl after they were apprehended. Comes from the very things that you talked about, and the young lady who spoke before, television, and a lot of the ways that our society is heading at the present time. And I think that we have to sensitize kids at an early age. The problem is that these kids, mainly from the ghetto, are desensitized from the time of birth. They don't have parents who are loving. They don't have parents, period, usually. Mother, she's there, usually is out to work if she's working, hopefully, but not probably because she's on welfare. doesn't have time for them. They get no loving. They get none of the basic necessities that makes people, that makes individuals, that makes humans, that humanizes people. And until our society says that the kids are worthwhile and that the mother, despite her state in life, poor as she may be, ignorant as she may be, or whatever race, is worthwhile to be cared for in a way such as that she can give care to the child, we're not going to make it anywhere. And I think that...
But that's the whole purpose behind Aid for Dependent Children. I mean, that's theoretically what we're doing, isn't it?
Well, in a sense, yes. But the other part of that should, I think, would be to have daycare, wherein the mother is relieved of the care of the child, and she then is not necessarily forced, but in some way exhorted to go out to school, more so than work. And after school, then she can go to work. But the kids, and that's the important thing, are then placed in a setting where they can be socialized. And it is, in a sense, warehousing kids at an early age. And it may be radical in a sense of a socialistic kind of approach, but I don't see any other way out of it. I don't think that them staying at home and watching television, as most poor kids on an average watch 43% more television than middle-class kids, because there's nothing else for them to do, and they're relegated to the babysitter, or they're thrown outside to go out and play because the mother wants to watch something that they don't want to watch, and as a result, they see the whole of fantasy of life, and they end up missing everything, and they grow up, go out into the society, and see what's out there, but not available to them.
At this point, I must jump in. I thank you much for the input. I really do.
Well, you're welcome.
Take care.
Join 970 WFLA's Al Gardner for the Great Florida Duck Race. Saturday, May 6th at Harbor Island. Proceeds go to fight cancer. Get your duck now at any NCNB bank.
That's basically what it was. There's a resentment on the south end of Harlem, in that particular area, against the white urban movement into their neighborhood, okay? That is a conflict that's been going on for about 5 years now.
Well, fine, but how does that account for the...
I mean, it's a genetic thing. It's genetics and environment. Basically, a combination of both. I mean, there are always going to be deviants no matter what you do. Of course, you can try and test them at birth.
Well, then why do we seem to have so many more deviants today than we did 20 years ago?
A lot of this stuff wasn't reported 20 years ago. You have to remember that. Although there were newsmen around, there was a lot more control as to what got out sometimes, especially in the smaller communities. They wouldn't want the family embarrassed by the fact that somebody was raped. You know, they would do anything they could to cover it up, not to have it reported. That's the other side of the story, too.
Well, you know, again, I'm sorry, I don't think they were covering up when, you know, Joe and Jeanette went riding on their bicycle and somebody threw rocks at them. I don't think that was covered up.
No, I'm saying 20 years ago. I was just making a point that early there was some kind of control on things. No, what is it? In New York, it is more of a class thing than anything else. It's a class conflict. And it has to do with the fact that it's a power struggle for the street. It's a continuation of a power struggle that's gone on there for a number of years. And it's not going to stop, really, until, like you say, people are displaced.
Until people are displaced.
Yeah, displaced.
So you would kind of go along with, you know, moving them around.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you the truth. What did it for my projects up until about 66, 67, there was drugs, but it wasn't, you had to go looking for it. It didn't find you. By that point, they were knocking at your door peddling. But what of course, what cleaned it out, what made it improve for a few years, of course, was the war. Not them saying we have to go to war.
So where do you want to move them to, by the way?
Where?
Yeah.
Truthfully? Among the rest of our population, not to
How about if they don't want to go?
Area. The way you do is
How about if they don't want to go?
Oh, that's fine too. But what you're doing is you're trying to create economic opportunity for them, saying you have a chance for a better way of living, a chance for a little hut someplace, you know, in a better kind of. You'd be surprised if you gave people a shot at something.
Well, now wait a second. If you're going to give people who live in the projects in New York, you know, a little hut someplace that they can own, what about good, decent people who live in Tampa, who go out and work every day, never hold anybody up, never throw any rocks at anybody, but still can't afford to buy a house?
There's a way to deal with both of them. And the way it is that you use that labor that's in New York, that's laying idle, use that labor to create other resources, to develop other resources in other parts of the country.
Whoa, you think I want a trainload of these vile people brought into my neighborhood to build houses?
Hey, listen, that's how they brought the Italian laborers from the New York ports out to Colorado to build the railroads through the Rockies, right?
Well, it's a different story. Building a railroad through the Rockies is a hell of a lot different than building housing in my neighborhood.
Well, they had the conservation corps in the 30s that, created a lot of the national parks we have today.
Nowhere. Out in the middle of nowhere.
Well, those places are becoming somewhere now as we get more populated and more developed. You'd be surprised if you give people an individual choice. If it's only 20% or even 10% that take that choice, it still takes a little bit of the pressure off. It's an attempt.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bob.
990-9352 in Hillsborough, 2 lines open. There's one as well currently in Pinellas at 461-9352, 461-WFLA. Where are you? Come on.
I guess we scared him last time. 5:20 on the dot.
Whoa.
All you got to do is...
It was 7 seconds early.
He tries to be a big guy, big intimidating Bubba. All you got to do is threaten him with the boss, and he is...
Threaten me with a boss? Are
right
you serious?
online next time.
Are you serious?
Just
Threaten
like
me with a
hitting
boss?
Just like hitting a mule with a piece of wood.
You think that's going to scare me?
Intimidate, Bob.
Intimidate me? Are you serious?
Oh, boy, I see you're towing the line, Bob.
These are the people that tremble in the hall when I walk down it.
I never walk down the hall, Bob.
Well, I know they don't let you in the building.
I'm up here. You can't get to me, Bob.
Right, I know. Our very own airhead.
You can't jump 1,000 feet, Bob.
I wouldn't try to jump 1,000 feet.
I mean, I can sit up here and call you a subhuman whatever. I can say, fibber. I can do that. I can go...
Yo, Gar.
Yeah.
Why don't you open the window and see if you can jump 1,000 feet?
Would you catch me, Bob?
Sure, Gar.
Okay, well, I trust you, Bubba. Hey, we have a couple of problems in Hillsborough County this afternoon. State Road 60 and 39, still through lanes have been affected there. 40th and Buffalo.
Tampa Bay area recites the addresses of the Grand Prix car washes along with Lassiter on the radio. And that's why I try to break them up and, give them to you in different orders to fool with your little heads. Because I know that many of you are sitting back right now prepared to say 1880 Gulf to Bay Boulevard right across from the Clearwater High School in Clearwater. In Seminole at 10471 Park Boulevard, that's about a half a block east of Seminole Boulevard. And the newest location, Grand Prix Car Wash to the Stars, 3622 Gandy Boulevard, a half a block east of the Crosstown in Tampa. And we could do that so much more often. We could sit here and recite those addresses together so much more often if only we could eliminate 4 or 5 of Gary McHenry's traffic reports an hour. Tampa, you're on the air at 970 WFLA.
Good afternoon, Robert.
Good afternoon, Tampa.
Robert, I'm not quite as versed, I guess, on some of your callers that have been calling in, or my intellectual scope, I guess, is probably not as wide as theirs, but it's people with that wide of a scope. It seems to me they seem to forget the basics, so to speak. If you just give me a few seconds. It seems to me what an impact it would be if everybody who calls, whether they know it or not, they can do something. If you would just have each individual person who called would get out tomorrow and say, well, today I'm going to do one thing for the next 30 days. What I'm going to do is just learn who my neighbor is next door. If you remember 20 years ago, Bob, as I do, I'm probably your same age. We knew Mrs. Johnson down the street. We knew that she lost her husband 2 years ago, and her daughter comes twice a week to feed her, and this, that, and the other thing. We knew old man Tomlin, him down the street, and how he used to chase us kids. Everybody got involved, not necessarily butting in, but you knew who your neighbor was. And when I was growing up in the streets of Atlantic City, the B&E man's, if you didn't know it, break and enter, a guy who breaks and enters buildings, his worst enemy was to go into a neighborhood where everybody knew everybody else. Most of our callers today, I'd be safe to say, the greater percentage of these people that call today don't even know who the hell lives down the street from them. They have the old attitude, they're moving in. They don't bother me. I don't give a damn, so they don't bother me. I don't care what they do. If each individual person today, Bob, I think it's very, very simple, would just get to know who the hell lives down the street from them.
Well, that sure sounds good on the surface, and obviously it sure can't hurt, but it's not going to, people in my neighborhood aren't committing a hell of a lot of crime. People in your neighborhood probably aren't committing a hell of a lot of crime. I'm not terribly concerned about somebody that lives, a half a block off of Bayshore Boulevard.
But, Robert...
I'm awfully concerned, though, about some people that live on the other side of downtown Tampa.
Yes, sir, but what I'm saying is, Robert, instead of worrying about the person in downtown Tampa or Bayshore, if each each individual person thought that way, it would spread like wildfire.
Yeah, but come on, if I go into College Hill tonight and start knocking on doors and, offering my hand, the first thing, probably they'll steal my ring. After that, they'll look at me and say, well, what's this jive turkey doing over here? Get out of here, boy. You don't belong here.
Well, obviously, Robert, that's not your neighborhood.
And,
but if there's
and if the people from College Hill come into my neighborhood, I'm going to cringe behind the drapes and call the cops.
I didn't say come into each other's neighborhoods. I said be concerned in your neighborhood. By being in turn getting concerned in your neighborhood in your one block. So the one that lives at the...
What's that going to do me in terms of stopping violent crime?
Robert, well, if you figure, maybe it would have an impact on our children when they see, instead of saying special programs and for this and try to have this and with our children and tribal heritage and all this, children, when they grow up in an environment, they learn from what they see and what they're around, Robert. If they can learn about what they see their parents do with seeing Mrs. Johnson down the street or seeing old man Tomlin down the street, and in turn learning from that experience and how that could spread to children in the event like, well, I was brought up not even thinking they were brought up to respect the neighbor next to you or know who was down the street or be concerned if someone else comes into the neighborhood that shouldn't be there. And not just saying butting in, but just getting involved, just saying something doesn't look right. You don't have to look for it. The reason why... The same thing they have today, Robert. They have what they call a neighborhood watch. A neighborhood watch, Robert, is nothing newer than what you and I had 20 years ago. You probably knew all your neighbors around 20 years ago.
Neighborhood watch is the same damn thing as locking the barn door after the horses run away.
Exactly, but what I'm saying is, Rob, if we used our same philosophy like we had years ago where we were involved and knew our neighbor...
Your next-door neighbor is the same damn thing. It's locking the door after the horses run away. I'd like to live in a world where I didn't have to lock the door.
This is what I'm saying. If we knew our neighbors and got involved starting tomorrow, maybe we could alleviate that.
Thank you ever so much. He just doesn't quite seem to understand, 5, 6, 7 times. You say the same damn thing. I don't want to live in a world where my neighbor is watching out to see if anybody's ripping me off. I would prefer to live in a world where people didn't try to rip me off. Oh! There are 3 lines available. All of them are in Hillsborough. 990-9352. 990 WFLA. Don Richards standing by at the WFLA News Desk. Donald.
540 and 2,
traffic report. Our very own Brian Adonis. Gary McHenry.
I got this guy in line like a puppy with a newspaper. Traffic along 50th and Fowler affected by an earlier minor collision. You're finding a Bayview, an accident on the Courtney Campbell Causeway between there and Clearwater. An overturned vehicle that's going to be causing a mess for a while. And I'm Gary McHenry, 970 WFLA.
Gary exceeded his traffic report by 47
I don't have it.
seconds.
I get 60 seconds, buddy. 60 big ones. And don't you forget it.
Gary.
You subhuman timekeeper.
Gary,
what?
The phrase big ones and you just are mutually exclusive. I want you to listen to something. I would like you to listen to something very, very closely. It's something I listened to just a little bit earlier this afternoon. Can you hear it? Silence. 25 minutes away from downtown Tampa, there is a new community, a walled community of 90 wooded custom home sites. And it's silent, affordable, lakefront, oak-covered. It's called Woodridge. I'm going to be telling you a lot more about Woodridge in the days and the weeks and the months ahead, but just a little sampling of some of the things we'll be talking about. Lower taxes, lower impact fees. Hell, even your car insurance is going to drop 30 or 40%. Better local schools, sewer and water hookups already there. It's a relatively small community, only 90 lots, just minutes away from USF and downtown Tampa. Several quality builders all ready to bid on your plan for a custom home site. It's got to be the best value. Prices starting from around $120,000, including the land. And it's quiet. A place to build your dream home on a majestic oak-covered home site. Woodridge, 960-2707, 960-2707. And then you can sit around and listen to absolutely nothing. Marvelous. Treasure Island. Hi, you're on the air at 970 WFLA.
Hey, Bob, how you doing?
Doing fine, Treasure.
Real good. We were talking about why kids are so violent right now, and I've been trying to come up with maybe 3 facets that existed 20 years ago that really don't exist today.
Okay.
Let's talk about pop culture. The lack of a good pop culture. It's all commercial right now. And in the same vein, over-commercialization.
Over-commercialization?
Well, the image handling of commercial people. There's, music today is not a creative venture anymore. It's a mill to pull out pop songs. We've lost that creative identity.
You wouldn't really be trying to somehow try to convince me that, we've got all these problems because the music isn't right?
Well, no, but, okay. Well, when you were growing up, what kind of music was being played? Was it new music? Was it music you could identify with?
It was new music, Beatles and Country Joe and the Fish. And
yeah. Well, what kind of music is being put together today that is serving as a role model for our youngsters? Something, not just something that commercial people have been cramming down.
One of the songs that was very big back then was by Country Joe and the Fish, as a matter of fact, that encouraged me to get together with a group of my friends and cheer.
Uh-huh. The kids cheer right now?
Well,
do they cheer about
I think
anything?
The cheer was not a socially acceptable cheer 21 years ago or today either.
And it never has been.
No.
This is a very unique area.
I played it on the radio.
This is not an area where there's a generation gap. There are 4 generation gaps going on in this area.
So I still fail to understand why that causes people to go out and beat up women with pipes and leave them for dead.
Because all of a sudden, with such different people and a society where advertising molds people into certain areas, only those...
What advertisement has caused people to go out and beat women with a lead pipe and leave them for dead?
No. I'm talking about the development of people. These are kids doing this, right? Impressionable kids.
What advertisement has caused people to go out and beat other people over the head with a pipe?
It's an advertising mindset, Bob.
What does that mean?
It means...
Well, let's stop talking in metaphors and cliches
It means we're going to target. We are going to target this
No. I believe I just got finished asking you to stop talking in metaphors and cliches, and you said to me, your response is it means we're going to have to target?
No,
I think I'm going to have to target.
No, we are
target the button where your call is coming in on with my index finger. You have just been targeted, sir. 990-9352 in Hillsborough, 461-9352 in Pinellas. Largo, you're on the air at 970 WFLA.
Hi, Bob. First-time caller.
Okay, great.
As far as the youth go, I've had the chance to speak with, gangs of nasty skinheads, and I've had the chance to speak with some nice kids as well. And the one thing that seems to run current is all that they want to do in this day and age is get done with what's going on right now and go hang out with their friends. Whether that's a group of 3 guys or a group of 50. And what I'm thinking is if we could get them to interact with some strangers, or not necessarily strangers, but...
Well, they have been interacting with strangers. That's part of the problem.
Right, but the wrong way.
Right.
If we could get them to maybe... I don't know how to do it. School is one way, but they're not going there. But if we could get them to speak with other people and learn to see that other people aren't cartoon characters, that they're for real, maybe they wouldn't be out in the park beating the hell out of innocent people. I don't know.
I don't know either.
It's a drag because...
Well, one of the things that I do know is that I'm not really sure that there's a hell of a lot of difference, what is the old proverbial bucket of warm spits difference, between the attitude that those punks in New York have with their fellow citizens on the face of this earth and the attitude that you and I have with our fellow citizens on the face of the earth. The difference is, I think, that for whatever reason you and I don't have the guts, the inclination, whatever it might be, to hit our neighbors over the heads with pipes and sticks and things of that nature. But
right.
That we don't really consider the other guy to be very much of an influence or whatever in our lives. We don't pay a hell of a lot of attention to him. He's not real to us. Does that seem to ring a bell?
To an extent, I imagine. But I think that if you can somehow get people involved in even... I know that this is impossible to do, but like even community goings-on or things like that. Do you know what I mean?
Well, it sure as hell wouldn't hurt.
What I'm saying is if they can learn to that people are not just, they're not there to be taken advantage of and to be bashed around. I mean, like you said, we haven't got the inclination to do it or the guts, but and they've just been turned off by society and pushed in the back and go watch television and this and that, and before you know it, nobody's real to them anymore.
Well, that's the way I've seen it for quite some time. I thank you, my young friend.
Take it easy.
Take care. 990-9352 in Hillsborough, 461-9352 in Pinellas. Let's go to the capital of tin. Zephyr Hills, you're on the air at 970 WFLA. Hi, Zeph.
Hello.
Hi there, Zeph. How you doing?
I'm from Zephyr Hills.
From Zephyr Hills. Yes, sir. I suspected as much.
All right. Can I speak now?
Sir, you could speak even if you were from Temple Terrace.
Mr. Lassiter, will you please listen to what my solution to the crime problem is?
Well, sir, if you could get to it, I don't have forever. It's only a 3-hour show.
I know. It isn't going to take long. Have you ever been out in Death Valley?
No, sir. I
can't say here's my solution.
Today earlier, though.
I don't think I'm crazy. I've been out there 6 times. And there's a crater out there called Ubehebe Crater. And take all of these criminals and stick them out there with water, a hoe, a shovel, and a rake, and then take a picture of them every day and give them enough feed to raise their own damn food.
Do you also own an awful lot of Eastman Kodak stock?
What?
Is that perhaps why? Do you own a lot of Kodak, Eastman Kodak stock?
Now, you can blast me if you want to. Mr. Lassiter.
Excuse me, sir, I was getting my blaster.
What?
I said, excuse me, sir, I was getting my blaster. Don Richards standing by at the WFLA News Desk.
Moving into the Clearwater area coming from the Courtney Campbell. I'm Gary McHenry, over limit 970 WFLA airport traffic.
230 North Dale Mabry in Tampa, 264-1937 is the telephone number. And 2454 McMullen Booth Road in Clearwater, 726-0523. I wouldn't dare suggest the Oric to you if I did not firmly believe in it. And I do. I'll have to get a second one for my house so that Muffy and I don't fight over it. I know you don't believe that. I know. It's fighting over the vacuum cleaner, sure. Zephyr, you're still there. Hello, Zephyr.
Yeah.
Okay, you can continue.
Is this Mr. Lassiter?
Yes, it is, Mr. Lassiter, yes.
All right. Would you please listen to what I have to say to a solution to crime?
Absolutely, sir.
All right. You ever been out in Death Valley?
No,
well,
sir.
all right. I just asked you a question. I've been out there 6 times.
No, I've been to,
pardon?
Been to the New York State Fair. I've been to,
I don't care where you've been. But this is my solution to the crime. Out in Death Valley, I've been out there 6 times.
6 times, yeah.
And all types of weather.
Mm-hmm.
And there's what they call the Ubehebe Crater. It's a mile deep. Take all of these lawbreakers and send them out there with a rake, a hoe, and a shovel.
A hoe?
Give them water.
Is that a $2 hoe?
A hoe. H-O-E.
Oh, okay.
Now, give them some seed and plenty of water and let them live out there. I've been out there when it's been 120. Now, that may seem radical to you, and I'm not living in a dream world, but by God...
No, you're calling from Zephyr Hills. That is not a dream world. I understand that.
Sir.
No, sir.
My house has got every gadget on it to keep people from breaking in.
Uh-huh. Bags of garlic, things like that.
If they come in this house, and I know what the law says, if a break-in, you shoot them in the back, you're up for homicide. If you shoot them in the front, it's all right.
Well, it's not exactly quite that
I'll shoot them any
simple,
damn
but-
place I can get it on. Now, I was cut my teeth on construction work, and I know all the expletives, and I think I could give you a few lessons, but I am over that period of my life.
Oh, well, that's good.
Now, you can blast me if you want to.
Why would I want to blast you, sir?
I don't know.
Would you like me to blast you?
What?
Would you like me to blast you?
No, I don't care what you do.
Well, then
I've
why,
dealt
then why
with
did you
people all
ask me to
my
blast
life, and I feel that I'm 84 years old.
you? Sir, this is not the station
So
you have
I'm
to give your age on.
don't know what I'm talking about. Well, the hell I don't. Now, do you have anything to say about my solution?
Why don't you take pictures of them every day?
Take pictures of what?
The guys in the yucky mucky crater there out in Death Valley.
Oh, come on.
You don't think that's a good idea to take pictures of them every day?
No. What the hell should I do? Why should I do that?
You really would not want to photograph them every day?
No. What would I want to do that for? Just as long as they stay off my property.
Do you have property,
ordinary
sir? Do you have property close to the yucky mucky crater out there?
I live in a hell of a nice neighborhood. And we've had, one night, we had 5 break-ins in houses here in this neighborhood.
Well, that doesn't sound like a nice neighborhood.
At 8 o'clock. Well, it is. It's one of the finest neighborhoods there is in Brown Zephyr Hills.
Then why do you have so many break-ins, sir?
Well, because of these criminals that's running loose and they go in front of a judge and they get a slap on the wrist and away they go.
Do you mean to tell me that?
I know. You think I'm living in a dream world, but
No,
I am.
No, sir, I feel like I'm living in a dream world.
What?
I feel like I'm living in a dream world. Do you know how long I've waited for a call like this? Do you know I used to get 4 and 5 and 6 calls an hour like this when I first came to Tampa?
Well, you're bored, I know.
No, I'm not bored, sir. I'm just waiting for the return of the great callers.
Let me tell you something, Bob. I've had plenty of education.
Well, I believe that firmly. Unfortunately, I'm fresh out of time. Would you call me every day for as long as we're both together?
WFLA's Al Gardner for the Great Florida Duck Race. Saturday, May 6th at Harbor Island. Proceeds